Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. So our dear sister, she was saying that, Brother Nashi, even deep down in my heart, I can feel that my soul is so bitter. Even if I die today, I don't think that I'll ever make it to heaven because of the bitterness that is in my heart. And also, I am hoping that God will eventually forgive me for all the bad words that I have spoken against His name. The translation reads like this: Hello, Brother Nashi, can you please post for me my story? And post for me is anonymous. My brother, I am a woman who is much older now, but my story happened to me when I was in my 20s. But this story of mine that happened to me, it has caused me to hate church so much. Even if I pass through a place where there is a church building, if I look at that church building, I will feel so much hatred towards that church, the name that will be written on that church, and towards Christianity in general. I don't think that I will ever step my feet inside a church building again because of what was done to me by a certain pastor. That thing that he did to me, it left such a dark mark in my heart, and I have been struggling ever since to heal from this thing that happened to me. I grew up in a family whereby my parents were very dedicated Christians, and when I grew much older, I then decided to move out of our family house, and I started staying with this other lady. And this lady that I was now staying with, she was a businesswoman. So this woman, she had her own flea market. It was almost in the middle of town. So I was working for that businesswoman as a flea market girl. She then said that when I was not on my off days, I had to stay with her at her family house, since she said that she didn't want to give me money each and every day, like transport money. When I started working for her, she used to give me transport money each and every day. But later on, she said that this was too much expensive for her. So since she had a car, so whenever I was not on my off days, we would use her car going to work. Then I used to work also for her at her family house as her part-time maid. But when I was working for her, I was never paid for all of that extra work. Maybe in her mind, she was saying that since she was offering me transportation to and from work, it was the reason why she wanted me to do all of that extra work. But I never complained, because growing up, I was a woman who knew what she wanted in life, and I was quite a hard-working woman. So sometimes when I was on my off days, I would go back to our family home to be with my parents. Then here and there, I would go with my parents to their church where they used to go, but it was not like an everyday thing. Then there was this other time when I had traveled back home to be with my parents. I then found out that my family had been paid a visit by their pastor, who was the leader of the congregation where my parents attend, who then told them the purpose of him visiting them. I was then informed by my mother that at the church where they used to go to, there was a certain man who had found me to be very attractive and suitable to be his wife. And this man, he was much older than I was. And for that reason alone, I didn't want to be with him, because I didn't want to be seen with a man that was way older than I was. People would start to think that maybe I was sort of a gold digger. This man was too much older for me. But when I started to hear about his story, I then felt sorry for him, because this man, after the death of his wife, he had stayed for a very long time without ever dating anyone. So for that, I then agreed to date this older man just to see what he was like. But before I saw that, I had suddenly fell in love with that man. Then before we were married to each other, we had to follow all of the church protocols of not meeting each other in a place where there will be no one who will be from our church. Like if we wanted to go out, then we had to tell one of our church members or any of our church members that would be assigned to us, so that we will not end up making love or kissing each other before we were legally married. Because this church, it was against the sin of fornication. There was no such thing in that church as sex before marriage. The man that I got married to was a man who didn't want me to work. So when he had paid for my bride price, he then told me that I had to resign. So I told the woman that I was working for that since I was now a married woman, my husband had suggested that he didn't want me to work anymore. So I then returned back home to my parents, and I was busy doing nothing, just waiting for the day to arrive, my wedding day. But then those pastors took me in, and I started staying with them when they said that it was not good for me to be sitting around not doing anything. When I started staying with these pastors, I was staying in the guest house, which was part of the main house, but the guest house was connected to the main house by the garage where they used to park their cars. So what would happen is that there was a door that led to the main house, then there was a door that led you to the guest house where I was staying. Both of these doors could be accessed from the garage. Since this pastor was such a busy man, the pastor's wife then had asked me that I should be the one to take the responsibility of making sure that whenever the pastor would return back home, I would then go to the gate so that I can open for him. And this pastor, Brother Nashi, he used to come back home very late at night. And as time went on, I then realized that whenever I would have opened the gate for that pastor, he would always look at my body with such lustful eyes. But when I noticed that this pastor, whenever I would have opened the gate, he would be looking at my body with such lustful eyes, I then thought that maybe it was a demon that was whispering all of these evil things into my ears. Knowing that such a man of God will never lust after other women, I thought that all of these thoughts were being formed in my sinful mind. So this thing continued happening over and over again, and I kept blaming myself for this pastor's lustfulness. As time went on, I was then told that there was too much work at the pastor's office, so then I was supposed to go there because my services were needed there. So every morning, me and the pastor, we would wake up and prepare, and we would go to work together as if we were a couple. All along, me and him, we would be locked up in his office, and his office was designed in such a way that it was in an area that was not very accessible to anyone that would have visited the church. So what would happen is that when you would have visited this pastor, you had to go past the administration block. Then there was a hallway that led to his office. This pastor then started having a lot of naughty conversations with me that were not suitable for a pastor to have such a naughty conversation with one of his congregants. And worst of all, I was a woman. How was I supposed to respond to all of these naughty conversations that this pastor kept on bringing up whenever we would be locked up in his office? One time, he would casually mention how his manhood was too big for his wife, and his wife didn't even know what to do with the pastor's manhood. Or he would say that when he will be sleeping with his wife, like when they will be making love, the wife will just be sleeping on top of him like she was a dead tree, and she will not be doing any action so as to please him. This went on for a very long time, and it was slowly making me feel very comfortable to be naughty around him. And whenever I would say anything that would be naughty, the pastor would then encourage me to tell him my position that I favored when I'll be making love by the time that me and my husband would have had our wedding. Then there was one day when me and him, we were locked up in the office as usual. Then he suddenly rushed out of the office. Upon coming back, he was holding 2 bottles of fruit juice. He gave me one, but when I opened the cap of that fruit juice bottle, I noticed that the seal had been removed. I then showed him, and he acted as if all of this was just normal. He took that fruit juice bottle from me, and he drank that fruit juice so as to show me that there was no harm, and it was just a simple mistake. So we both drank the fruit juice together. But I think that there was something that was in inside that fruit juice, because after me drinking that fruit juice, I then started to feel so hot, like I wanted a man who was going to cool me down. I tried controlling the feelings of passion that were sweeping across my private parts, but I failed. The very next thing that happened is that I realized that I was now making love to that pastor like crazy. People, Brother Nashi, will be judged by God on Judgment Day for all of their sins, because as that pastor was busy making love to me, what he would do is that if anyone would come and start knocking at the door, the pastor then will start shouting as if he was deep in prayer. And he was not just shouting, he will be shouting in tongues, but at the same time, he will be making love to me. And all of us, we knew that this pastor, he was such a man that didn't want to be disturbed when you will be talking to God. This is what he used to say, that when you will be deep in prayer, locked in his office, he will be talking to God. After that pastor had made love to me, he went on with his work. He did everything that he did each and every day, like praying for people and then signing off on some papers as if he had not even made love to me. This thing kept on happening over and over again. Then the evening just before my wedding day, he came and he picked me up and he forced to have intercourse with me. And when he came to pick me up, all of my bridesmaids, they just suspected nothing, since they all knew that I was the pastor's personal assistant. After he was done making love to me, he then drove back to that place where we were booked and he dropped me off. As I was getting married to my husband, I felt so dirty inside, knowing that I had slept with another man just the night before my wedding. But still, that pastor acted all holy throughout the day of my wedding. In this church, my brother, it seemed as if this pastor, he had some kind of charms that he used to use on people, because what would happen is that if you came to that church and if he saw that you were a rich person, then the pastor will find a way to brainwash you and you will start to give him a lot of money. So at that time, my husband clearly said that he wanted to leave this church, because what had happened was that there was this other time when the pastor had requested that his own son was supposed to travel to America. At their school, they had this other school trip to America, somewhere at Walt Disney. So this other woman then used all of the money that she had kept. This money was meant for her child when the child was going to become a first-year university. She then took all of that budgeted money that was meant for the university money for her child. She then used the money to fund the trip to America for the pastor's child. When my husband saw all of these things that were going on, he didn't want to be part of that church anymore. But the pastor one day said something that was very funny to my husband, and my husband had a dream. After that nightmare, my husband got so sick and he died mysteriously. And after his death, I felt so much anger towards God and Christianity. Even now, my brother, I still struggle with the bitterness that I feel in my heart. This pain that was brought upon my life by this pastor has brought so much bitterness in my heart and in my soul. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear sister. She was saying that she has so much bitterness such that when she walks past a church building, she feels like cursing God because of the things that were done to her by that pastor.